Hi, welcome everybody to the September 11th school board meeting for Carpenter Unified School District. We're going to start with a flag salute. Salute, pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, in observance of 9/11 today, I'm going to suggest we take a moment of silence to remember our fellow Americans. Okay, thank you. I know there was some lovely events that Carpinteria held today, so thank you for that. We're going to start with closed session report. Item C2, conference with labor negotiators. Discussion occurred, but no action was taken. C3, approval of minutes. Can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of the meeting of August 28, 2018.
Second?
I have some amendments to make, so I move to approve the minutes with a few amendments. On E1, item E1, it stated incorrectly that I was an FFA member and I was actually only in 4-H. On item E5, the Measure U update, please let the record state that I had concerns about the $90,000 gate at Aliso and in coordination with the 3-foot perimeter fence. And the last piece is in my board communications. I also added that an equity task force subcommittee should be added as an agenda item. Thank you.
All those in favor of the augmented minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I get C4, approval of agenda and consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Maureen.
Aye. Oh,
Right.
excuse me. Aye.
Rogelio.
Aye.
Jacqueline.
Aye.
Michelle.
Aye.
I'm aye.
Okay, that takes us all the way to E, right?
Yes.
Okay, public interest reports, presentations. E1, introduction and recognition of Tobe Plow. Is that how I?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Board President of the Santa Barbara Bowl Foundation by CUSD Superintendent.
Well, I don't see Mr. Plow here yet. So when he does arrive, maybe we can stop what we're doing, and so I can introduce him, because we want to thank him. We have deep gratitude for their generosity in supporting the arts in the elementary schools with a $35,500 donation to the Carpenter Unified School District.
That's great. We can probably come back to that one.
Yes.
Yeah, we can come back to that. Okay, let's go on to E2, Carpenter High School presentation, one-to-one learning environment. Mr. Cornejo.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank the board for allocating the funds for our one-to-one device for our ninth graders. As we move forward, I hope in about 3 or 4 years, every student at Carpenter High School will have a Chromebook. Tonight, I have 2 teachers, Ms. Rogan and Mr. Witt from the science department. And the reason they're here is they have mostly freshmen in their biology classes, so I want to give them the opportunity for them to present to you how they've integrated the one-to-one device at the high school. We have about 175 freshmen. All of them were given their Chromebooks on the 29th of August. Tomorrow at 6:30, I'm hosting a meeting for parents who wish to come and learn more about the Chromebooks and how the students are using them in class. And the 2 teachers from our science department brought some students who will be sharing with you what they've learned in the last couple of weeks and how they've been able to use the devices and how it has changed their learning and how this has also changed the way teachers have presented certain lessons. So it's all theirs. Thank you.
Hello. And we'll call up our student speakers at the end, so you guys can just sit for now. So, hello, thanks for having us. I'm Mandy DeWitt.
And I'm Audrey Rogan.
And we're going to tell you a little bit about our new one-to-one program at the high school. So I'm going to take us through the less exciting part, which is the rollout, how the Chromebooks came to be in the hands of our ninth graders after they were board approved and ordered. So over the summer, the CUSD Information Technology Department was hard at work getting them programmed and ID tagged, led by Aaron LaPlante, and also our librarian, Rachel Bradley, getting the barcodes on them so that we can actually track them in our library system and assign them to a specific student. And so that was a lot of the behind-the-scenes work. Oops. Then in early August, I met with Mr. Cornejo and Mr. Vasquez as a very excited and interested ninth grade teacher, asking about what the actual rollout plan would look like. And so what we worked hard on was our Carpinteria Unified School District Chromebook User Agreement and Expectations, which I'll explain a little bit more, but it's an entire guidebook on how the Chromebook should be brought to school and what they should be doing when they're at school with their Chromebooks and all of that. Then we created the development and distribution plan. So we met together and figured out how are we actually going to give these to the students. We had a lot of different ideas. Should we give them to them at orientation before school starts? Should we just give them to them on the first day of school? So we brainstormed a while and then came to the conclusion that their ninth grade English classes would be the best place. And luckily we just have two teachers teaching ninth grade English, Kelly Pierce and April Nunez, and they were on board with the plan. And on the third day of school, after traditional welcomes and things like that, they were the ones to actually roll out the Chromebooks, followed up by Amy Gill and Peter Cotty, who teach Get Focused and Stay Focused, and Health, because all ninth graders are in one of those two classes as well. So there was a very carefully thought out distribution plan as well, with a lot of team players involved. Right before school started, on our professional development day on that Thursday, all ninth grade teachers met together in the library, in addition to some other teachers who are also very excited and interested to know about how the Chromebooks would be rolling out. And we went over both the Chromebook user agreement and the distribution plan together as a team to make sure that everyone was able to provide their feedback, and we were able to make some last-minute edits and changes to make sure everything was going to roll out smoothly. So far you'll see there's a lot of names up on the screen because this project was huge and it required a lot of teamwork. So this was just in the summer before school even started. Then the exciting day was the third day of school, which was Wednesday, August 29th. The students got their Chromebooks. So again, this was in their ninth grade English class. When they went to that class that day, they watched a great informational video from Google, about 3 minutes, all about just what happens when you open the Chromebook for the very first time and logging in and setting it up. Then they reviewed that user agreement and they went over the essentials that are in there. And then we actually gave them a contract. And the contract is just stating that they've read those guidelines and are going to try their best to abide by them. An insurance plan was given out by Ray Vasquez, our assistant principal, and he encouraged all students to buy the insurance because if damage happens to the Chromebooks, instead of them having to replace the entire thing, the insurance is a great deal for our families so they don't have to pay for everything out of pocket. And again, that was the initial Chromebook setup. And so Aaron LaPlante was on campus all day to do any assistance last minute. Mr. Cornejo and Mr. Vasquez were assisting our teachers and walking over to the library. And Ms. Bradley was checking those out all day long. So very exciting. And then the very next day, the fun part is the students actually played a Kahoot quiz in class. And so we're already putting the Chromebooks to use. Instead of just boring reading the expectations, we asked them to read it for homework and then gave them a fun quiz that was interactive, quizzing them on their expectations for those Chromebooks. And again, they did that in their health and Get Focused, Stay Focused classes. That was also the day that all other ninth grade teachers, such as Ms. Rogan and I, introduced our own classroom expectations, got our students started on Google Classroom, and started implementing them. So we've had them in action in all class periods for the ninth graders since August 30th. Since I've mentioned this document several times, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. It is 9 pages long. We tried to think of everything we could possibly think of that could go right or wrong with the Chromebooks, and we put it in this document. So it outlines all the guidelines, rules, and expectations. Again, we passed out this to students on distribution day. We did give them a paper copy, but this is also posted online. It's on my personal website, and we plan to get it on the school website as well. And then all students and families have signed in a use agreement form stating that they've read these guidelines and they're going to try to stick to them as much as possible. And then students played that really fun Kahoot the next day in class, going over the most important expectations, such as students should bring Chromebooks every day and they should charge them at home so they're fully charged at the beginning of the day. So that's how the Chromebooks got into the hands of our students. And now that we have them there, Ms. Rogan is going to tell us a little bit more about what we're actually doing with those Chromebooks now that we have access to such amazing technology.
So I get to talk about the fun things that we're doing. Google Suite is one of our big apps that kids use pretty much every day. And these apps should look familiar because they're in the world right now. It's in the workforce. Students need to know how to craft emails. They're using their Google Drive to stay organized, and almost every teacher's got a drive for them and a folder for each class. Almost all teachers are using Google Classroom and pushing assignments digitally. It's saving paper, and it's giving students access to their information digitally at home. Students are learning how to communicate professionally, and already I've seen the standard for their emails just rising. They're giving me a proper subject, they're signing their name, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they've got a computer with them at home. They're keeping track of their schedules. They're making beautiful documents on Word. One of our first assignments was navigating Word and practicing using the different features. They're using Sheets to succinctly present their data, and we're using Sheets to look at our data as educators. They're using Google Slides to make presentations, as are the educators, and we're using Google Forms a lot to collect meaningful feedback from students. So almost all of our science tests are pushed out on Google Forms. Students can take them via Google Forms, and we've got their digital feedback right there. It's very meaningful for educators. And we're also looking at fun apps like Kahoot has been mentioned. Students love Kahoot. I've noticed that the engagement and the volume and the joy in my classroom goes up when we're playing Kahoot. Just on Friday, instead of having them move through a worksheet on paper, I just turned it into a Kahoot, and I could tell that engagement was a lot higher. We're also looking at Pear Deck, and I did a presentation at our staff meeting yesterday showing all of our staff how to use Pear Deck. It's an excellent app which lets the students respond to questions as you go through a lecture. So you can have multiple choice, you can have students drawing, you can have them doing numbers and all sorts of different responses, and it's all anonymous. So you can post the responses on the screen. Students get excited when they see their responses, and then the teacher has all of that information so they can see who gets the material and who doesn't, and who needs some extra support. And then we're, of course, paying attention to classroom management. We've got a screens up, screens down rule. As the students are listening to teachers give instructions, their screens are down, and then when they are supposed to respond, their screens go up. We are interested in surveillance techniques and kind of some apps that would let teachers monitor their screens as students are working and kind of keep a track of their tabs. We haven't found one yet, and we'll kind of keep assessing as the weeks go on and as we see how it actually looks in the classroom if we'll need some of these surveillance apps. So it's really exciting. It's been fun as an educator to get creative and keep researching these apps that teachers are using around the country, and to start moving towards a very digital classroom where students can have access at their fingertips and be really equipped for the world after high school. So I'd like to invite up our students. Come on up, you guys. These are students who are actually using the Chromebooks, and we've asked them some of these questions, and I'm just going to ask that they give their name and answer to one of their questions. So, come on up.
Hi, I'm Ian Thomas. I am a freshman at the CHS, and I'd like to answer, how does having a Chromebook help you as a student? So, a lot of the times, I can't go home when I'm done with things because of my mom's work, my mom's job. So So it's nice having a Chromebook because a lot of the stuff that is being assigned to us now is online, like on Classroom, and it's kind of difficult to do that on your phone. So I just hook up a hotspot, or I go to McDonald's or Coffee Bean or somewhere, and I just hook up to the Wi-Fi, and I can do my work on my Chromebook. So that really helps. So then I don't have homework when I go home.
Hi, I'm Augie Schaefer, and I'm going to answer the same question as Ian did. How does having a Chromebook help you as a student? It helps me as a student. It helps all the other students as a student, because I know some kids don't have a computer or a device to do their electronic homework on. And so by giving all the students these devices, they have the chance to do their electronic homework at home.
Hello, my name is Yaritza Nunez, and I will be answering the same question as the last two boys. Well, having a Chromebook helps me as a student by actually being able to get my homework done at home, because I used to have a computer, but it didn't work. So now, since I got my Chromebook, now I'm more able to finish my homework.
Hi, I'm Fiona Casbaro, and I'm going to be answering a different question. How has having a Chromebook changed the way you learn to do schoolwork? Normally, we have to do schoolwork on different pamphlets and packets of paper, but as someone who carries around tennis rackets and shoes and lots of other sports equipment in their backpack, having a Chromebook that has all their homework on it makes it a lot easier for me. So I really appreciate that.
Hi, my name is Maximo Carrillo, and I'm going to be answering how does having Chromebook help you as a student, like they did too. So, I use my Chromebook every day, either at home or at school, and I use it for homework, creating docs, spreadsheets, and Google Slides. Having the Chromebooks are a huge advantage to us students and the teachers, because us students now don't have an excuse for us not to do homework, and teachers now don't have to worry about requesting the laptop cart in advance. So yeah.
All right, well, I'll do a mini round of applause for our students for donating their Tuesday evening to be here with us. Thank you, guys. And Max stole the words right out of my mouth. So Miss Rogan and I used to play a Chromebook cart tag last year for the last 2 years. Be like, okay, I need a period 2, then I'll send my TA over for period 3, but I need to keep 4 of the Chromebooks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now in our freshman classes, it's so nice to just be able to say, everyone get out your Chromebooks, and then know that those Chromebooks are going home with them. As many of our students said, now they can use that wherever they are, and we don't have to worry about access and equity as much, because we are providing that access and equity for them. So a huge thank you to the board for approving this initiative. We can't wait until 4 years from now when all of our students, grades 9, 10, 11, and 12, have the Chromebooks, and I think we're off to a great start. So unless my colleague, Ms. Rogan, or Mr. Cornejo have anything more to add.
One of the things that we all discussed at the beginning was, what do we do with classes where the majority are ninth graders, but there's 2 or 3 juniors or seniors? So we do have additional Chromebooks that the teachers can request to be sent to them. Our librarian has a quick response, so she's got about 15 to 20 Chromebooks that she can send out to the classes if they need to be, or they're also working as a team. One of the great things about having the Chromebooks in the classroom, it's also allows the teacher to maximize the teaching time. Before it was go get the Chromebooks, take them out of the cart, put them back in the cart, and by the time the 50-minute period went by, they actually had only about 30 minutes of instruction. So this is a great opportunity for that. The other thing that this also allows the students is to be able to collaborate more outside. I see it during lunch when they're sitting out there in the quad. They have their Chromebooks out thanks to the Wi-Fi that we have at the high school. They're doing their work. They're getting ready for the next class. So that's one great thing that we are able to see with the one-to-one device.
I have a question. Do students have access to the whole World Wide Web, or is there some sort of content monitoring blocking?
So while they're at the school, they have the same filters as we have in our system. So they are filtered. Once they go home, that's another responsibility that we pass on to the parents. because we cannot filter their content. But one of the things that was in the expectations is that this is similar as a textbook. So just like you would not be drawing something on a textbook that it's inappropriate or having something that's inappropriate, the same thing. If you bring to the school your Chromebook and you have an inappropriate desktop, then that's something that we will be speaking about. So this is also a new thing that the students are having to be responsible for, because this is a new device. This is a device that allows them a lot of freedom, but at the same time, there's also responsibility that comes with it. So we are treating the Chromebook just like it's a textbook. A lot of times students think, well, I can write something in a textbook and nobody's going to find out that I did it. Well, guess what? You check that out, and we're going to check it at the end of the year, so you're going to be responsible for that. So while they're at home, and that's one of the things that we're going to discuss tomorrow for the parents that choose to come to the meeting, is what can they do at home to properly safeguard their students online, and what some tools are available for them to do that.
Can I just make a suggestion that you make that information available to all parents and stress how important it is? My kids have computers, and it's a worry for me what they can access.
Correct.
So we really need to communicate to parents and give parents the tools. I would imagine many of our parents don't know what they can and cannot do and what their kids can and cannot do. And their kids can do a lot.
Yes,
with
and
the
ultimately,
Chromebook.
it's not necessarily the Chromebook that they have access to, but they most of them are carrying a computer in their hands that already gives them that access. Again, this is an opportunity. We can monitor the behavior on campus. What they do off campus, that becomes a little bit more difficult. But again, giving the tools to the parents for them to actually learn. A lot of times students are a little bit tech savvy than the parents, and they're tech savvier than a lot of us at times. It's just providing the parents with the tools so that they can have the conversation with their students. It's a trust issue, but if they have the conversation, they have the tools, and they're able to dialogue with their students, it becomes a great tool to have.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations to you for rolling out this program. I know anytime there's something new, it involves a lot more work than probably we on the board understand that it's going to be. So I really appreciate the summer moments that you took to follow through with that. I think the questions that I have kind of more relate to it as an ongoing program. How did we fund? I mean, what was the funding for this? Does anyone remember?
Yes.
Oh.
In the budget development process last winter,
Yeah.
we discussed one of the additions that we wanted to add was a one-to-one learning environment, beginning with the high school.
So this
Our
is
goal is eventually is grades 6 through 12 will have a one-to-one learning environment, but that will take over years.
so with these. Sorry,
It's
Dan.
funded in the general budget.
And we committed to it as an ongoing upgrade every year to buy another batch of them, or, I mean, because the thing is, you don't want to start it with freshmen and then say, oh, well, that was a one-time thing.
No, it's in the budget, so it'll continue.
So
Okay.
they keep those Chromebooks their whole 4 years,
They keep
correct?
it,
Unless
yes.
there's damage or something, right?
So we do ask that they turn them in at the end of the school year. So at the end of the school year, just that they would turn in their textbooks, they turn in their Chromebooks, but then they will be reissued the same Chromebook the following year. And then one of the concerns that came up about that was if there was summer homework for AP classes and things like that. So we decided that we would reopen that discussion in May when it gets closer to the end of the school year. And for this particular group of students, the only AP class that's offered for sophomores is AP World. So I think we do it on a roster-based situation. And well, again, we'll get to that bridge when we get there. But there might be exceptions. But otherwise, they turn them in every year.
Because just along those lines, Ms. DeWitt, thank you for bringing up access and equity, because that's actually a piece of what I'm trying to really focus on this year. And just along those lines, in terms of the funding piece, I know like Santa Barbara, the Santa Barbara School District at Santa Barbara High, they have a one-to-one iPad program, but it's a rent-to-own type program. So they don't have to do it, but it's basically, I think, like $6 a month for all 4 years of their high school, and then they walk away with that device when they're done. And so I wondered along those lines if my concern is with this insurance piece, and if a textbook gets ruined, that's $80, and okay, that's a stretch for a lot of our families, but they can manage it. But even with this insurance piece, I don't know. I just, if one of these gets destroyed at home, I'm a little concerned that, the $300, if they, I don't know how much you said the insurance plan was reasonable, but anyways, I don't think we need to answer this question now, but I think that funding piece is an interesting one to look at, because I like how Santa Barbara's program, they get to walk away with the device, and it's a very low cost
an
thing.
option for them.
Right, they don't have to do it,
They
but it's
can
an
just
option.
be issued it without renting to own.
Right,
Every
because some
student gets it,
people,
yeah.
even the $6, I think the bottom line is, if we're treating this like a textbook, we have to understand that not everyone, there's a reason why not everyone has a computer at home, and just being aware of the cost of replacing that, and what's the best way that's going to serve our families in the long run. Do you know what I mean? And also, I think that the nice thing about the rent-to-own program, too, the iPad, is that basically those iPads are kind of obsolete after 4 years, in the same way that Chromebooks, so they're getting a slightly more obsolete piece of technology after 4 years, but they take it with them, and then the district gets to bring in a new piece of technology rather than, So anyways, these are not questions to answer tonight, but just pieces that I raise as a future conversation.
The insurance is $25 a year, and it covers loss, if it gets stolen, or any damage. There is no deductible to it. What some school districts have done, as soon as the device gets to be 4 years, they move that device to a lower level, where they don't need a state-of-the-art computer. They just need access to the internet for simple apps. That's another thing that they've done. The great thing about Chromebooks is that they're not that expensive. They limit the students to what the apps that are available through Google Play. It's a very robust product, but at the same time, it's got limitations, which is not something that people are going to walk away. One of the great things about the Chromebooks is that they have been, Aaron, our IT coordinator, has installed the district profile to it, so if it goes away or it walks away and it gets stolen, he can lock them up from remotely. So that's one great thing. We do have financial aid support for those that wish to buy the insurance and can't, but it's a third party. Students are able to log in and pay for it. And for $25, actually, we charge less than any other high school in the area for that insurance.
That's per year, correct?
Per year. And it covers literally everything. There's no deductible. So if you crack the screen, you bring it in, and in 3 days it gets fixed.
Great. Well, I'm glad that's a low cost, and that's a great benefit to our families.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were able to negotiate that based on the relationships that we have developed with the insurance company. But in many places, that insurance is $35 to $40.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. That was very informational. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to return to item E1. Yes, which is Santa Barbara Bowl Foundation. So.
Yes, nice job, thank you so much. Thank you so much, it was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Come on up. Yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you so much, it was wonderful. Thank you, guys, wonderful. Excuse me, so I'd like to introduce Mr. Tobe Plow, who's the president of the Santa Barbara Bowl Foundation, and he's so generous. The Bowl has been so generous in that they're honoring us with a check for $35,500 for our performing arts in our elementary school. So thank you so much. You are so
welcome.
generous.
I feel honored to
Yeah.
give you this gift, too.
Thank you so much. Would you like to say a few words?
Just a couple brief comments. We're really honored that we can step in and do this. A lot of things came together this year. I guess you can say there are silver linings and dark clouds, because the three benefits that we did this year for the community that was harmed by the fire and then the flood caused us to get offers from various artists to come in and do benefits. And so the money that we, just the venue, got
was money that we divided up amongst 3 different schools. And we're really honored to be able to do this here in Carpinteria, because we know how impacted your community was by the fire. And so I want to thank you for everything you did to weather the storm, and hopefully this will be a little bit of help.
Thank you so much.
You're
Really
very
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
generous. Thank
Thanks.
you.
We really,
Thank you.
really appreciate this because we understand the link between resiliency and the arts, and such a great way for our students to build that within themselves through the arts. So thank you so much. Yeah.
And we know that this was maybe just a one-time funding, but we hope to build a relationship with the Education Foundation and the Bowl and find ways to collaborate in the future.
Thanks for that, because we also look forward to that and want to see what we can do to make this a yearly gift. So hopefully this won't be the last, but this is the beginning.
Great. Thank you so much.
Very much. Yeah. Okay. Let you get seated again because we're on E3 Superintendent Report.
Great, thank you. So I'd like to begin with some appreciation. Tonight I'd like to recognize the principals and all their teaching staff for the back-to-school nights last week, and there's one remaining this week with Rincon. They did a great job communicating with parents about school and about classroom expectations, the grade level standards, the curriculum they're teaching, grading, learning goals, homework, and all the daily lessons. And we had a great turnout, so I thank and appreciate the parents for joining us. Next item is enrollment. So our current student enrollment has increased since I published this, so it's 2,179 students, or 26 students less than last year at this time, which I've attached to so you can see at each school site. And I'm proud that our class size average in TK to kindergarten has been reduced to 20 students. We have 160 students and 8 teachers, so the average is 20 students. And then you'll see I also included the enrollment history. So you can see in the last 10 years it's been about a 7% decline. The next item you've requested some information about, so I wanted to take a few minutes and share with you a little bit about how we're implementing restorative justice practices at each of the school levels, elementary, middle, and high school. So last spring, our leadership team participated in a workshop with the restorative justice community. It's Lizzie Rodriguez. She's the chief coordinator, Restorative Community Network, so it's RCN. This network is a coalition of individuals and organizations committed to working together to address the complex social issues contributing to community harm or crime. And the purpose of the RCN is to advocate for the use of restorative practices in the justice system, in schools, and program services. So we're fortunate that the RCM in Santa Barbara County provides workshops to school districts and to help us build school communities with the shared core values of respect, integrity, courage, and humility, and also to teach those values, model the values, and hold students accountable as respectful members of the school community. So, like our district, their goals are to build safe and positive school communities with strong relationships between students, staff, teachers, and administrators, and parents. And so to practice restorative justice, school discipline focuses on repairing the harm to the school community and its members by reteaching the appropriate behavior. And a guiding principle, we learned that a guiding principle is that the consequences should always be educational, not just punitive. The goal of restorative justice is to work with the students, both the victims and the accused, to come to a solution rather than just simply handing down a punishment. It seeks to fix the problem, impose fair consequences, foster understanding, and adjust student behavior. And that's what builds a strong, respectful community. In our district, respectful community is a core value, and we strive to ensure that it's reflected in all our activities, programs, and services. And we know that principals, teachers, and students and staff work daily to build their positive classroom and positive school climates. Many of our elementary teachers use responsive classroom approach, and that's to create their classroom community. And then at the elementary level, students are explicitly taught behavioral expectations, how to manage their behavior, and how to participate as a positive member in their learning community. Now, any inappropriate behavior or poor decision-making, we consider those teachable moments. And teachers determine the cause of the behavior or the communicative intent to then intervene and provide the necessary reteaching and support. So essentially, our approach is teaching appropriate behavior is like teaching math skills. So we identify what the behavioral expectation is, we model it, we reinforce it, we practice it, we reinforce those students who are practicing it, and if there's a point where that behavior is not being displayed appropriately, we intervene to reteach it again. And then in the classroom, if there's issues between students, typically teachers will facilitate a restorative circle in which they bring the students together to discuss the conflict and work towards a resolution. Because what we want to do at the elementary level is to begin to build the skill set on how to resolve conflicts with other peers and students. Now at the middle school, we're very excited that this year our teachers participated in the AHA training. That's Attitude, Harmony, Achievement. And they're also implementing a daily advisory period, and they use the responsive classroom advisory practices to improve the school climate. The responsive advisory meeting offers a solid framework for building meaningful connections and developing respectful and trusting relationships while meeting the middle school students' developmental needs. As in the elementary schools, at the middle school, behavioral expectations have also been clearly communicated to all the students and the parents. And the school administrators and teachers reinforce the learning of the impact of any poor behavior or poor decision making. And they really focus on helping the students to figure out strategies on, quote, how to make it right. So they want to offer the restitution and then replace the inappropriate behavior with the positive behavior. And the typical question that is asked during the conversations is to the student is, what do you think you need to do to make this right as possible? And then at the high school, all of our freshmen participate in weekly AHA classes, and that's to strengthen their own social emotional competencies and to build a school climate. You know, at the high school, we have a very active ASB and robust extracurricular activities to promote membership in the community. Behavioral expectations and consequences also are clearly communicated, and they're modeled to maintain a respectful community. At the high school, the teachers and administrators work really hard to build personalized relationships with each student. You saw some of that tonight with the biology teachers, science teachers, and some of the students they brought tonight. And they're really focusing on creating a school community of inclusion, respect, and understanding of others and their feelings. When an issue arises between students, typically the assistant principal, Vasquez, will intervene and mediate a restorative discussion with the victim and the offender, because it's really about repairing the relationship. And they're trying to help students to increase their understanding of the power of their words and their actions to each other. Any questions about restorative practices or comments about what we're beginning to do at the schools? Okay. Yes.
I'm very familiar with this because it's something that's already happening at Santa Barbara High School. I think it's great that the teachers are doing training because it's really a mindset shift for everybody, kind of from the top down and the bottom up. What are the, as you've established, Carp High School has a very rich community, ASB and activities like that. And it seemed to me from what I've heard while I've been on the board that the middle school is lacking some of those social networks and clubs and kind of richness. I'm just sort of, is that also being implemented along the lines with the AHA training and the restorative justice training to try and build those kind of social connections?
Well, that's the exciting part about this year is from the training they've developed a class of ASB, and so we have student leaders that are promoting school inclusion activities. And for example, last week they had their first school assembly that was led by students for students. So we're looking forward to that. They've begun to do that, so we'll see the results this year.
Great.
So on to Measure U. So last time we were together, he had a great presentation about the summer projects, but the work still is going on. And today we had Gen 7 classrooms. They were brought on the middle school campus. So we're very excited. They're beginning, and it'll happen through the month of end of September through the month of October. Delivered those classrooms, so very exciting. So, and that's the focus, is construction for the Gen 7 classrooms. So at Canalino, the concrete walkways and planters have been poured, and crews are preparing for landscaping. At CHS, Gen 7 classrooms are also preparing for the installation of the utilities and the site work. And at the middle school, the foundation work is completed, and as I said, they've begun the delivery of the Gen 7 classrooms. For Summerlin, the Measure U team has begun the process of applying for a coastal development permit with the County of Santa Barbara. They've also had one meeting with the Summerlin Architectural Board of Review, and they've begun the application process with the County of Santa Barbara. We're also looking at plans for the modernization projects at Canalino and CHS, and they have been submitted to the DSA and are undergoing some review at this point. The other design work that's continuing is the modernization of existing classrooms at Aliso and Maine, the new administration building at the high school, conversion of the existing administration building at CHS to classrooms and offices for Rincon and Foothill High Schools, and a new learning center at Canalino. The next item I want to report on is the highly successful CEF event on Saturday, the Copacabana. Thank you, Andy, for joining us. We had over 200 community members. I understand they earned over $70,000, and what was exciting, it was hosted at the high school. So that was really a fun event. So I'd like to acknowledge and thank the chair of the Carpinteria Education Foundation, Casey Balch, and the administrative assistant, Pam Werner, for the hard work they did. And the party planners extraordinaire are Nikki Yamaoka and Jessica Isaac. Did a fabulous job. And then last night, HopeNet held their candlelight vigil. It was in honor of the World Suicide Prevention Day, and it was at the end of Linden Avenue. And I just want to remind everyone that in our schools in the district, we focus on promoting positive mental health, the early identification of emotional issues, and really it's our responsibility to protect the well-being of all of our students. We are fortunate that we have START therapists at every school site, and they are mental health workers, therapists from CADA and FSA, and they provide school-based mental health services to students who are experiencing one or more emotional issues. Our teachers and academic counselors and parents can refer students to the START therapists. In addition, at each school site, we have a school psychologist who provides the mental health supports to special education students as needed. And we are also proud of our partnership with the Carpinteria Children's Project. They have the Family Resource Center, in which we provide referrals for families to receive therapy at the Resource Center. And I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good things happening.
Can I ask a question about enrollment?
Yes.
I know that as a basic aid district, we're supposed to look at declining numbers and not be alarmed, but I am alarmed. 2 years ago, we lost 66 students. 3 years ago, we lost 45 students. So yes, if you average it out, it doesn't seem that bad. But I do think there's a pattern here, and I just want to make sure that a public school is here to represent or to provide free education to the students in Carpinteria. And I don't think we necessarily have the data that we need on what students we're losing and why. Obviously, we're never going to get everybody, but I do notice that to me, 27 is exactly the same number as a DLI class would have been. It's also the same number that an additional TK class would have been. So 2 years ago, a TK class was cut, and last year, a DLA class was not included. And I do know of parents who opted not to join the district because their child was not accepted into the DLI program, and they left the district, and that's that. So, anyways, there are numbers out there. I was able to find on the SB CAG, which they do like transportation planning. They have there is information out there about, it breaks it down by city, like how many children are being born and how many in which age group. So anyways, it's something that I would like us to look at, just, kind of understanding this trend and seeing, if it matches a decline in population, then that's one thing. But if we're losing parents because of something we're not providing the community, I think that's something that we need to, we're obliged to look at. Thanks.
Okay, we don't have any public comment and no board policies to review tonight. So we're on to item G, educational services. And I think this is a presentation by board member Claffey.
So strange to be on this side of the dice. So thank you so much to all of you board members for allowing me to look at this topic, and to Diana and Monica for helping me prepare for tonight, and to the public for listening as much as they are. I want to start out by saying, while my name is very firmly attached to this agenda item, I refuse to claim responsibility for this. This is an idea that has evolved through my constituents and my talk with the community, staff, and teachers. So equity is something that the public is very concerned about, and a task force just seemed, it's kind of an idea that has found its time and is a reflection of what the community is asking for us to look at right now. So if you could, I just switch it to, there we go. So before we go into a talk about equity, what I'm proposing tonight is a equity task force board subcommittee, which is kind of a long thing. But before we go into that, I want us to look about what is equity. So I have on the screen just a really basic Merriam-Webster definition. So it's justice according to natural law or right, freedom from bias or favoritism. Equity is the idea also that the district's resources, from glue sticks to textbooks, plays to field trips, paychecks to perks, are applied fairly and equally to all CUSD students, staff, parents, and related communities, regardless of race, income, neighborhood, educational background, religion, or other factors. So pretty basic, but also something that gets overlooked. So why does this matter? Why are people interested in equity right now? Well, I think it hits different parts of our community differently. For students, educational inequities can mean a possible lifelong decline in overall success if their education is undermined due to discrimination. For staff, this could contribute to poor morale and high turnover if they don't feel like they're being treated fairly, or there's inequities in staff pay. For the district, this could mean legal jeopardy if the district is knowingly or unknowingly contributing to discriminatory practices, whether individual or system-wide. And for the community, inequity can result in an unbalanced school system that does not represent its families, creating a disconnect between schools and families. So, Carpinteria School District, like nearly every public school district in the country, has disparities in academic achievement between different groups of students. High and low income, English-speaking and non-English-speaking students, Latino and non-Latino students. There are additional subcategories of students who may not be achieving to their highest abilities for a variety of reasons, including homeless and foster youth, LGBTQ+ students, minority students, and students with special needs. But without looking into and addressing these issues, these inequities will continue and persist and most likely get worse. Not facing systemic inequity is like a leaking roof, okay? So we all know about a leaking roof. Like, at first it's just, you don't even notice it. You don't even know you have a leak. And then there's a little drip, and pretty soon you've got, a massive problem. So what does that leaking roof look like if you're a district? Like I said, plunging test scores, lack of parent involvement, unhappy staff, declining enrollment, and at the very worst, of course, a lawsuit. So the thing about inequity is that it's not applied equally to all people. So we could do a survey of all our students, and there are going to be some who say, oh, I don't, everything's fine. And there's going to be some that feel it more severely than others. So it can kind of feel like an invisible problem unless you're the direct kind of recipient of an inequity. Right now, we are already, as we discussed just now, dealing with declining enrollment, and our test scores could be improved, especially our achievement gap between our different groups of students. So let's not wait for for the worst to come. Let's face this leaky roof and begin to patch it, knowing that this problem didn't start overnight, and it's not going to get fixed tonight at this board meeting, or even with this task force, right? This is like a baby step towards, coming into the 21st century. Okay, so does teacher diversity matter in student learning? This is an article from the New York Times. Again, these topics are things that the entire nation is grappling with. It's not just Carpinteria. But there's a lot of great research being done and a lot of experiments that are being tried. And I don't know if anyone else reads the Upshot, but it's a New York Times column every week where they take a bunch of data and compile it in a useful way to try and make some point. And so this one was basically looking at how having a student that looks like you helps your student achievement. Even though the trend is towards white female students across the country, that's not necessarily what the student population is. And so the research in this article, which is by Claire Kane Miller, and the link is up there if anyone wants to check it out, the homogeneity of teachers is probably one of the contributors, the research suggests, to the stubborn gender and race gaps in student achievement. So overall, girls outperform boys, and white students outperform those who are black and Hispanic. When black children had a black teacher between 3rd and 5th grades, boys were significantly less likely to later drop out of high school, and both boys and girls were more likely to attend college. The same study, which they go in, that if you read the study, they go into like how they did it and that kind of thing. But in that same group of students, there was no effect on the white children for having a black teacher. So anyways, the point of why I brought that up is just to say, again, there's research being done. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. If we had a task force that was specifically looking at this, they could read articles like this, look at our system, and analyze things from a outside perspective and kind of help us work on these things. Okay. So how does equity relate to our school district? As per California Education Code, CSU students may not, so this is a law, California Education Code. CUSD students may not be discriminated against for any reason based on their gender, race, income level, language, or other factors. Right now, we know that CUSD is not 100% equitable. Why? Why do we know that? Because there's not a single district in the United States that's completely 100% equitable. There's probably no system which is 100% equitable. It's probably not possible. But we do know that nationally there's a persistent, this is a quote from another New York Times article, a persistent and troublesome academic gap between white students and their black and Hispanic peers in public schools. And that's what our district shows as well. A persistent and troublesome academic gap between white students and their Hispanic peers in public schools. This also applies to students at different wealth levels too. So we don't talk a lot about how socioeconomics play in, but they're a huge factor. So if you click on this link, I'm going to show you. This is another Upshot article. So this one is really cool. It's kind of a fun one to do on your own. You can actually, this is the data for the entire United States, and it's a grid. Monica, can you scroll down just a little bit? It's a grid showing all the educational attainment in each school district in the U.S. And then if you scroll down again, it shows on the right-hand side kind of how far behind or ahead the average students are. So Carpinteria District is about average in terms of our achievement, and if you go down a little bit more, it also breaks it down by socioeconomic level, the parents' socioeconomic status. So again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of data already out there. And there's a lot of ways of using analysis to kind of look at our problems and ask the question, how can we do better? Can you go back to the PowerPoint? Thanks. Oops. Sorry, technical difficulties. Okay. So, back to the very concrete piece of what would this, all I'm asking for today is to examine the possibility of creating an equity task force subcommittee. So what would it do and who would be involved? So this is my proposal that we start it now, basically in the fall of 2018, and end it after 1 year. The members would be 8 to 12 representative staff, parents, and community members, including 1 board member as chair. It would be a monthly meeting with bilingual materials and translation services provided. The goal would be to identify areas of inequity and make board recommendations based on findings with either an annual report or quarterly updates, or monthly updates, regular updates. And then board involvement, obviously, any committee work that any committees do is moot until it comes before the board and is either approved or struck down or whatever. So if a recommendation was made to make lunch free for all students or something like that, that just was out of nowhere. Of course, that would go nowhere unless the board approved it. So just a little, we don't use in this particular board, we don't use our board committees very much, but our board policy BB 9130AA does state that the governing board may establish committees. The board shall determine the duties of the committee at the time of its appointment. So the board can choose at any time to convene a committee and set the group with an assigned task. So that is part of one of our rights and responsibilities. Like I said, it would start this, I was thinking it would start this fall, and I kind of felt strongly that it would be best serving just for 1 year. That's why I called it a task force. I feel like a standing committee can kind of lose its momentum, and with a 1 year focus to kind of get something done, I feel like a committee could be more effective. But I also think that we could leave things open, and that could be something where it gets renewed in a year if the board felt like it. The goal would be to give the district more info to help evaluate its progress and to provide much needed data and research that really is outside the scope of the normal jobs of our district staff and our teachers and parents. And most people don't have the time or the interest like I do to, Google upshot articles on student achievement. Or maybe there are people, hopefully there's at least 8 to 12 people out there who like to do that and would be interested in working on this. But I just think that this is such a challenging task that it would be best served looked at by a wide range of people from the community. The district staff would only be involved in minor scheduling and research issues and to provide logistical and organizational support, like, for instance, just making sure that the room is available and whatever logistics we need, noticing for the meeting. And the research would be just like, how many, if we couldn't find something through the dashboard, a lot of our statistics are also available on the web. So that's what's kind of helpful. But if there was some statistic like how many Latino teachers do we have in the district, like that's something I would like to know. 23%. So there we go. So that's what we would rely on the district to help us find out. Okay, so that's that. So options moving forward, this is just a proposal, obviously, so we kind of have 3 options. There's always more, but these are the 3 options I thought of. Tonight, we could approve and create this subcommittee and also appoint a board member to represent it. 2, this topic could be tabled for, like the vote on this subcommittee could be tabled until the first meeting in December, which is when we'll have both a new board and also that's traditionally when we appoint subcommittees. So I thought that might be a more useful time. And then obviously the other opportunity is to vote against this committee. Just speaking to the last point, I think if we vote against an equity task force, what we're saying is that the status quo is just fine. and that the inequities that we all know exist are acceptable. So I think we've kind of let the cat out of the bag in the fact that we're just talking about this right now, because we've already, by having this, by even discussing this, we're basically saying we acknowledge that there are inequities, and I think by default we all understand that those need to be rectified. So personally, and this will be the last thing I say on this, but I feel that doing nothing is not an option. So the last thing that I want to leave you with is this idea of warrior spirit. So in putting this together, I kind of thought of a warrior as our mascot for the high school, and a warrior is such a noble concept and such a strong concept. And I read a new kind of vision of the warrior concept in a book that I'm reading right now called, it's by Pema Chodron, it's called The Places That Scare You. And it's the idea of a warrior that instead of killing and harming people, instead, quote, is a warrior of non-aggression who hears the cries of the world. These are men and women willing to train in the middle of the fire in order to alleviate suffering. And so the rest of the quote is here. We have examples of master warriors, people like Mother Teresa and Martin Luther King. Like them, we could learn to relate to ourselves and our world as warriors. We could train in awakening our courage and love. And the reason I leave you that is because it's a bit, noble and all these things, but it really takes great bravery, boldness, and courage to address inequity, because it's messy, it's hard, it's contentious. People don't want to look at it. But I think that Carpinterians deserve it. They deserve this chance to feel like they have a chance to be heard equally. And I feel like with this task force, it's an extremely cost-effective, practical way of addressing a problem that is pervasive throughout districts in the U.S. So thank you so much.
Maureen, I have probably a couple of questions.
Rogelio, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Do you want to come back
Yeah.
up here and we'll have the
Oh,
discussion?
all right.
Okay, and then we can, yeah. Thank you. Would you like to start?
Yes.
I have a number of questions as
Okay.
well. Mhm.
Maureen, yes, thank you for that presentation. And my first comment is that task force actually should not wait until December. I think that this task force should be formed right away, because it's very important. It's very important, and probably not everyone sees it that way, but it is. 70% of our students and 70% out of in our community, they are Hispanic, and a lot of them actually need to improve. That's one comment. Another one is that you mentioned about free lunch for every student. I want to give you an example. I know a single mom works full-time, 40 hours. You might say, well, that's normal. But she has another full-time, that's another 40 hours. That's 80. You might say, well, wow, that's incredible. Well, she has another, it's not a full-time, a part-time job, 12 hours a week. So that's 92 hours per week. Single mom, and believe me, and she's paying regular lunch for her son. Now, if there's this case out there, that means that there's many. So free lunch actually probably would would let these people probably quit this part-time job, and this would help a lot. Another one is that it was 2016 during our campaign, and when we came to I came to a board meeting and I heard about. I saw a presentation, listened to a presentation about academic achievements, and those scores were low to me. So I spoke for about 3 minutes or so, and that's what I mentioned, and that those scores were not acceptable in our district, and that was 2016, 2017, 2018, and those low scores are still there. English, language arts, math, they're there. So what you mentioned is actually what we need to improve the scores. Last night on the news, it was informed that the UCSB was named the top number 5 in the states as a public university, and 4.28 was the average GPA, and that means that our students have to be well prepared to actually get a shot at attending UCSB, and that's what we need. We need to improve our test scores, academic achievement, and that's the only way every day. And so DLI, it's on its second year, so this is an option, but probably within 1 or 2 years we'll see the actual results, and that will complement this task force, and I'm in favor of it, and I thank you, Maureen, for your presentation.
Jacqueline, do you have anything?
I'm not in favor of this task force. Because I'm not in favor of establishing this task force. It has nothing to do with my being for or against equity or recognizing or not recognizing equity. So that's all I have to say.
Anything? No. Okay. I have a few questions. Okay. So what is the kind of mission and ultimate outcome of the task force?
So that it's very important to me that this be a grassroots effort and not a top-down effort. The community itself would come up with the issues that they wanted to address. They would create at the beginning because I see it as a 1-year task force, it would be like 12 topics that they wanted to address. Concrete, actionable issues. Like
how do you decide that?
Well, that would be up to the group. So it's really interesting, the committee, with a lot of trust, basically, because these are our stakeholders, this is our community. And it's basically saying to them, it's twofold. It's saying, well, we're going to entrust you to come up with some ideas, knowing that if they're harebrained ideas, they're never going to make it past the board, right? So if we want to have, like, for instance, I threw the free lunch out there because that's just never going to fly. There's just not the funding for that. However, something actionable like we want to rewrite or we want to create a guiding mission statement for our hiring practices so that our hiring practices reflect our community, something like that. So that's not a great example. And I specifically didn't come up with concrete examples because I didn't want us to get stuck on the debate of, hypothetically arguing for or against some piece. What I know is that, as Roger said, we have a large portion of Spanish-speaking community. They have a lot of needs and interests and involvement, and yet their test score, the test scores of that English language and Latino community is not improving. That's a problem. And so how can we look at that? What can we do to look at that? And I believe that as a committee, as a group of individuals from the community, I really trust that that there would be a great chance to come up with some concrete action items. And the worst case scenario is if we come up with 12, the committee would come up with 12 impractical ideas. I don't think there's anything lost at the end of the day. Again, I don't think there's any reason not to do this because the community members are the ones putting in the hours. And we've started a conversation. And maybe even that conversation would be enough to start to change some of the cultures or some of the challenges. But even if I think, for me, if that task force came up with one concrete, actionable step that the district could take to move us closer towards student equity, I say why not? When there's no financial repercussions and no real to my mind there's no downside, there's no real risk to creating this committee.
So, a task force or a committee or anything like that, the logistics are important because it's by just approving that formalizes it. So I had some questions around those logistics. So how would you recruit and then ultimately choose members? Is there a rubric or something of membership?
There's
that you would propose?
in our board policies, it gives pretty clear instructions about subcommittees, and then other, like the subcommittee that we just convened this year for the Baylord property, for instance, has there are some very strict state guidelines related to specific types of property, whatever. So we have, I think the property, the rules set forth by that property subcommittee weren't. Mr. Gaby, remind me that they were pretty clear in terms of how you represented your community. And our board policies say you have to have a member of this, you have so many members of this community,
That's
so many
the
members.
District Advisory Committee?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we don't have any rubric for a different committee.
Right.
So also, how is this different than the work that the staff has been doing in professional development with Just Communities since they've been addressing these equity issues for the last few years? And how is it not duplicative of the parent plan that came forward about equity issues, also led by Just Communities about 3 years ago?
I don't know that it is different. I don't know that those things have been working. Not that they haven't been working, but with equity, I don't think there's any one magic bullet. I think you have to look at it from every angle and engage every opportunity that you have. And I think having a task force at the top level, at the board level, sends a very strong message to the community that this is a priority, that we are a 21st century institution, and that equity is a piece of our mission that here in Carpinteria has been overlooked and will no longer be overlooked, and that we're willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that our students, that we close that achievement gap.
Well, I disagree that it's been overlooked because it's been a topic of, again, professional development and discussion for at least a decade. I have to say, I agree with what you said that this is a national issue, that we're not alone, our school district's not alone in having subgroups scoring lower. I have to say we are actually doing better than our South County counterparts, and we're doing a whole lot better than our North County counterparts in terms of that gap. My other thing about my experience with addressing equity issues is this brings up a lot of emotions in people, can trigger people unexpectedly. So how would the committee be front-loaded on how to deal with that and the reactions that it could, spark in committee members?
Right. I mean, I think you make really, really good points, and that's why I ended on our kind of warrior piece, because we have to be bold and courageous in order to address this. Let's not be naive. These are tough topics. They're potentially divisive topics. I think that having really strict guidelines and clarity, I think you're right to really be concerned about the clarity of creating an inclusive community, and having guidelines to say we want staff member, to say exactly how how many of each community we want to have. But I also think, again, I think I said this last time, we have so many willing community partners, like Just Communities. There's other action networks and organizations that are actively working on this that I would hope to engage. And I think you make a good point that it would be really, really valuable to maybe have that first session just be a training on the issues and how, or even have AHA facilitate the group to say, we're going to facilitate this in a healthy way. And here are our guiding principles, here are our guidelines, here's our structure, and create a really safe container for those meetings to proceed in a way that, like, okay, we're going to bring up topics that may be distressing for people, and we're going to find a safe way to put those away. But I think also focusing on the concrete action items and having a chair who's willing to say, like, yeah, that's a problem, but it's not something that we're going to be able to solve tonight in this room in this 1 hour. And I think that's also the reason that having just a 1 year task force is it puts pressure on it to say, look, we've got a year to work on this, and that's it. And I think that's to speak with, I didn't mean to imply that this isn't something that the district has looked at. I know that it has been. I also know that it's pernicious. And I guess I'm also just proposing the fact that, like, I'm a creative person. Let's keep trying something new. And in a year, again, I think I'm just going to go back to what I said, that if we come up with one thing in a year, then that's one more thing than we had before. And at the end of the day, it's a volunteer board committee.
Even if it's a 10% improvement, that's fine.
Right. And I mean, even if someone ends up feeling upset at the end of the, I mean, I don't want to walk through hypothetical. I personally, as a committee member and a member of various volunteer organizations, I don't tend to volunteer for things that I don't care pretty strongly about. So I think if someone is willing to dedicate 3 hours or 5 hours a month to this, it's probably something that they've felt frustrated about for a long time and are finally feeling like, wow, here's a place where not only am I going to get heard, but what I have to say could affect things, not just for me. I'm not just a parent complaining to the principal, but I'm a parent who might get to actualize some larger district-wide change. I think that's extremely empowering. And I think having that opportunity could be a great asset, especially to our Spanish-speaking parents, a lot of whom I talk to through the DLI program, and they're not represented. They're not on the PTA. They're not. They might be on some of the other organizations, but they aren't necessarily traditionally included in our school processes. So I think to have them represented would be wonderful.
I would disagree with that statement, that our Spanish-speaking families are not represented at site level, because they are. We have the Spanish Language Advisory Committee, the DLAC. We have all sorts of ways for all of our community members to participate here. I think the thrust here is noble. Like you said, this is a noble cause to look for equity, and I think we all agree with that. But equity in outcomes and equity in inputs are two different things. And from what I've seen on my tenure on the board is that we don't have inequity in our inputs. All of our students are treated the same and are given equal opportunity. We can't guarantee equity in results. A lot of that depends on the person that we're speaking about the individual themselves. I think we all are looking for the highest and best results from all of our students. But I really don't see how this subcommittee, this task force, would be able to, is going to give us any added information that we don't already include in our LCAP every year, that we haven't included in our site level plans, things like that. And I've got to tell you that our staff is so in tune with this that if they see pieces of inequity or things that they feel are unequal, we're going to hear about it. You know, the community has an opportunity twice a month, at a minimum, to come and speak to us about issues that they feel they're concerned with. And I really would have liked to have seen examples of inequity tonight. The only thing I keep hearing is inequity in our test results, and I think it is an issue. But I don't see how a task force is going to address that when we already have a tremendous staff, a tremendous superintendent, a leadership team that addresses that every day they're at work. So I'm not in favor of forming this subcommittee at this time.
Well, this is how I see it. There's 5 of us, city council, and I am the only Latino on the board. I'm the only Latino elected. Nobody else can claim that. And because of my heritage, because I went through the system a long time ago, because I'm on the board, because I see things that none of you can see. It doesn't matter what you say. It's different. We have a different culture. And if this is how I see it, if we don't approve or at least table this task for committee for the next board meeting or down the road, then that means that those very students that we represent, we are neglecting them. We are putting them aside. That's how I see it. That's how
Rogelio,
I see it. That's how I see it.
Well, you may see it that way, but I think you're insulting our entire district, our entire staff.
No.
Just because you're Latino, unless you're Latino, you cannot serve that student.
No. Well, let me tell you
ridiculous.
This. Let me tell you this.
That's ridiculous.
You see that accent that I have in the back?
The what?
My accent, speaking English. That means that I had to go through what our students are going through right now. Some of them actually know English at all. And it wasn't easy. It was hard. It was hard. And that is why I told you that none of you can feel or see what I
This is why I think we need a task force, this discussion that we're having right now, because I think these are the 2 points of view that are being represented are exactly the 2 points of view among many, but very common points of view. I experience inequity every day for these reasons. I don't see it at all. That's completely normal. But one really big piece, and I wanted the task force to kind of be its own thing without getting hung up on, specifics at this point. But because it's been suggested that because I didn't bring any inequities to the table, there must not be any in the district. One glaring one, which I have asked to have looked at time and time again, is language. Not all of our parents speak English. And yet, and actually, in some ways, the district, the schools are more in alignment with our parents and our families than we are as a board, because our board materials are never translated. Our agendas are not translated. We don't have a formal translator here, interpreter here at the meeting. And think of the message that sends. How often do we get parents who are monolingual Spanish here? How often? Not very often. Because you know what? If there's no outreach, our website is all in English. These are things that are there's simple ways to solve these things, like putting a Google Translate button on your website, and bam, you've had it.
We have one.
So great. That's something that I haven't noticed yet. But this is what I'm saying. Like, the task force can call to, like, this is what I'm saying about invisibility. You don't see inequity if you don't experience it.
And that's why last time I spoke in Spanish. Remember that statement?
Jacqueline?
Rogelio, I don't think I have much of an accent. I came to this country knowing probably 5 words of English. We left Vietnam with literally the clothes on our back. My parents, I think, came here with about $200 to their name, and that was from gifts that was sent to them in the refugee camp. Okay? So for you to sit here and say that if I vote against this, that means that I'm casting aside the students. Let me speak. That I'm casting aside students who are struggling with the language. When I went to school, when I started school, I probably lowered the grade point average of my class of my entire school up through high school. Okay, I was one of those students. If you kept looking at the gap, I widened the gap. I lowered the test scores. Okay, but I was able. Thank God for Glendale Unified School District. Props. I was an English learner. It took a long time for me to catch up. I caught up. The gap is there. If you have good educators to address those gaps, then we are way ahead of the game, and I believe that we do have that. This, as I said, and I didn't want to engage in this long, drawn-out conversation, I am against this task force because I am against this task force, not because that I am casting aside anybody, and just because I don't speak with an accent, and sometimes my accent do come through, but it doesn't lessen the experience that I've had, okay? And you don't get to care more or I don't get to care less just because I vote against or for something, okay? So I choose to be here today and not cook a healthy dinner for my children. It doesn't mean that I don't love them or that I don't believe in nutrition. Okay, so don't say that because if we don't do this, then we're casting aside students. I'm offended by that.
No, actually, that is why that's for the very same reason that we have that task force.
This is also my point of the triggering and the front loading.
Can we make a motion?
Yes, I was just going to go there.
I move to table this topic until the December meeting, when we have 2 members who are leaving in about a month. And so any work that this task force did would be irrelevant to, I just feel like I'm hearing enough interest in this topic that I think it deserves to be considered with a new board. Yeah. So I move to table this discussion until the December meeting.
I actually agree that this should be tabled because I don't want to set in motion something when new people are coming on. So, I second that, but we can vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
I think we should vote on it.
Yeah. Do you want to make a motion?
No, it already passed.
Oh.
We're going to table it. Thanks. Okay, we're on to H1 warrants. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
I second.
Discussion?
I know things are a little crazy because Miss Fitzgerald is out, and we send our best wishes to her. But just had a question about this new set of inspection services. Should we bring this up at a later date, or did you have information about it? Check number 01-531573.
And who's it to?
Joseph Razzo.
And it's Measure U?
Yeah, it's coming from the account number 22, the Measure U inspection services.
I would need to ask Measure U staff, but I recall that this is directly related to the roof and it's required to be inspected by Mr. Razzo, and so that would be the cost of his inspection.
Oh, it's not to do with the Gen N? Or we'll find out when.
I will find out.
Okay. And then the other question was just a general question, which maybe just to add that to the notes for next time, which was, I believe there's a spending limit on things that can be, that have to go through a board process before they get approved. Is that correct?
Okay, so you need to clarify, you're asking about two different situations, I would believe. Any expenditure on a warrant, you have to approve all those expenditures. However, if we have a purchase more than $5,000, that's what we bring to the board. So you'll see, for example, that we brought a particular curriculum to the board, second step, because it was over $5,000. If that curriculum were under $5,000, we would not bring it to board approval on the board agenda, but it would be in the warrant if we spent the money.
Right. So with like, for instance, with Joseph Ferrazzo or whatever, excuse me for not pronouncing his name correctly, but the expenditure was over $5,000.
Yes, but we approved his services.
I just hadn't seen it, so that's what I was asking about.
It was approved.
Okay.
Probably, I believe it was in August.
Okay, maybe there was one board meeting when I was gone, so. All right, thank you. That's all.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. H2A, donation from Santa Barbara Bowl to Carpinteria Unified School District Arts Program in the amount of $35,500.
I move to approve.
Second?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
H2B, donation of 3 Tower Garden to Carpinteria Middle School teacher Kelly Flores. It is in the amount of $955.23. Wait, no.
Which one is this?
The total amount is $2,865.69.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. H3 is resolution number 18-831, adopting the GAN limit for 2018-2019.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, I'd hope to find out a little more about that. I think it's just, but I guess.
Well, what are your questions?
Just, is it just an annual, I mean, just.
Yes.
We do it every year.
We do it every
Okay.
year.
Roll call.
Maureen.
Aye.
Rogelio.
Aye.
Jacqueline.
Aye.
Michelle.
Aye.
I'm aye.
Thanks. H4 is the 2017-2018 unaudited actuals. Are you going to do that
Yes,
PowerPoint?
yes,
Okay.
I have the PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm going to start with the best news for 17-18. Last year at this time, we were predicting that we were overspending $1 million. And we ended the year with just a $205,000 deficit. So that's really good work. So, all right, so let's start with page 2. And this is the change in our unrestricted revenue. So in column A, we have the estimated actuals. And then column B, these are the actual revenues. So we received more money in state aid, and that was due to the final property tax collection. And you'll recall that when we don't receive our final property calculations until mid-October. So when we estimate, we don't have all the information. So that increased. Our federal revenue increased $55,756 because special educators collect Medi-Cal hours when they provide services to students with Medi-Cal. So we thank the special educators for doing that paperwork. So that increased $55,756. Our state revenue, that is a decrease of $2,044 in our final allocation for lottery. And then our local revenues, increased over the estimate because we had some compensation payments from the County Office of Education, and there's some, it was something to do with stale checks clearing and revenue at the local level. So we had $482,035 more than we expected for revenue. Now we move to expenditures on page 3. So the overall is we spent $407,000 more than we expected. And the reason why we spent that is that we had our salary increases due to the property tax calculation. We had a federal program monitoring process that indicated that we attributed expenses to the categorical programs, Titles 1, 2, and 3, that are not allowed. So we had to put those expenses back in the operating budget at $68,661. We had vacation payouts, and that's for custodians because they're allowed vacation time, and if they don't take it during the school year, then we pay them. And that's based on their contract, and that's $14,256. The increase in athletics, that's due to the transportation costs, and when you travel far distances, you use charter buses, so that's $46,302 more than we expected. We had a cost, we had to issue a TRAN, and so that cost was $164,583. And then we had an indirect cost adjustment, which was less than we expected at $14,241. So we spent $407,804 more than we had expected. Then another item in our unrestricted resources is the transfers out for special education and also for the state preschool. So you'll see that we had to transfer out $3.8 million, and we are expecting to only transfer out 3.6. So we transferred out $155,000 more dollars than we were expecting, and that's mostly due to special education. So when you look at page 5, what you want to look at is we estimated in column A that we would have a decrease to fund balance at $472,000, but actually our decrease is going to be $553,821. That's for unrestricted. Then we look at the general fund, and that is where we've adjusted our revenues, and we had $178,000 less than we expected because we moving to 18-19. This is for this school year. Is that we had to reduce our one-time dollars, $334,235. We had an increase to align the actuals, $108,000, and we increased the local revenue to align to actuals, which was $47,550. So our revenue adjustment at this time from our adopted budget at this time is $178,685 less than what we adopted. However, the footnote here is that we do not know what our total property collections will be until October. So we will have the final figures, and we will be looking at the 18-19 budget again by October 13. And that's when we should have our final property tax collections. Our adjustments for expenditure at this point in time is the TA agreement for cause. Even though they've not ratified, we did put in the salary increases. We had, again, increase of athletics, for that's the bus transportation that we're anticipating. We had to increase the nurse corps contract because we have students with some special needs. The increase from the federal program monitoring, again, you know, we had to take money out of the categoricals and put them back in the operating budget. And then last year we were charging parents for field trips, which we are unable to do. So this year, the district is funding 50% of the field trips, and the parent groups will fund 50% of the curriculum field trips that every student will have access to. But the real change is our special education adjustments. We've had some increases for preschool and staff. We've had increases in placement in non-public school, and we've had increases in contractual services for students with severe emotional and behavioral issues that are now in our schools and not in county programs. So right now, our 18-19 budget has a over expenditure of $622,986, but we do expect that to change and to be reduced. So on page 7, I think it's an interesting view of comparing the 6 years of unaudited actuals and the change from year to year. And pretty much what it says to me, the takeaway is the revenues are up and down. Whereas the expenditures, overall, the average is about 7%. And you can notice that the 16-17 year was 0.9. That's one off year. That was because the raises were not put in that year. It was in 17-18 because of salary adjustment. The good news, though, is on page 8, and that's the total general fund multi-year at a glance. In that, as I said, 17-18, we began the year at $1 million over expenditure, and we ended at $205,539. So 18-19 today, it looks like we're spending $629,697 more, but we do expect that revenue number to increase based on the property tax information that we receive in October. And then, given the information we have as of today, if you plan 3 years out, your reserve balance, it dips down and then it comes back up. Our goal is to have it over 7%, as close to 8 to 10 as possible. So we still have some work to do for this year and next. So the work ahead is our property tax projections from Santa Barbara County, and we're looking forward to that. We need to look at the final cost salary schedules after the collective bargaining is ratified, contract is ratified. We've blocked the budget. It's called budget blocking and escape, meaning that no one can expend over their budget line item. And then we've been doing this all year. I think that's why we've been so successful in reducing last year, is that we monitor all expenditures and all the time card activity closely.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve?
I just had a couple of questions. Or,
We have
Move to
do we
approve.
actually do we
Second.
approve
Okay.
these? This
You
isn't the
approved
finalized.
Yes, you approved the 17-18, not 18-19. You're approving the 17-18, last year's
close
actuals.
out. Yeah.
Oh, this is the unaudited actuals. Okay.
17-18.
And then in October, the final version of this will come
I'll
in.
get it up.
Yes. Yes.
So do we have to approve these?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so discussion.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Is anyone else?
Okay.
Just a really quick point. I've lost track, but with the property tax dip from the Thomas fire, has that already been factored in? Or is that a
We factored in,
potential?
It's for 18-19.
Oh, 18-19, right. Okay, thank you. And then just thank you for whoever figured out the sorry, my brain is frying at this point. The field trip inequity, and I think that speaks right there to an inequity that needed rectifying. And so you can't ask families, on the low income level to pay for field trips.
Yes.
So clearly that's been happening for a while, and clearly that got noticed, and now it's been changed. And that's hard. People don't want to necessarily do that, but I value that acknowledgement and that change, and want to thank whoever figured that out. And And the good news is it's been acknowledged and changed, and the field trips are they're still finding a way to have those happen. So thank you for that.
Yes.
All right, all those in favor of accepting?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Right, Measure U, contract with KI for classroom furniture at Catalino Elementary in the amount of $63,244.77.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I-4, approval of change order number 2 for modular buildings purchase for Carpinteria Middle School.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We're on to J, personnel summary. And a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, go ahead.
Just one thought, which I had already sent a comment to Ms. Rigby about this, about the administrators in charge piece.
Yes.
And it's not something to necessarily deal with in this personnel report, but I do think it might be appropriate in these, as we're looking at the budget and reviewing kind of personnel pieces on a larger, sustainable basis, to kind of think about options for Summerland, and in terms of having an administrator there, or some reworking of the Aliso Summerland situation. So just my 2 cents that, as it says in the personnel summary, we're not paying them very much to basically be the administrator in charge for the schools in case of a disaster, and that happens not unfrequently at Summerland because there's not someone there on a regular basis. So anyways, that's just my thoughts on that.
Right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, board communications. Maureen?
I just want to thank all of you for indulging me in my presentation for the Equity Task Force Subcommittee. It's a topic that I'm very passionate about and will continue to be focusing on this year, regardless of whether this task force is created or not. I think, again, through the lens of equity, it's a really interesting way to view our district policies. And along those lines, I'm back in school again, so I'm up at City College taking Spanish to support my daughter who's in the dual language immersion program. And I will also, it's a really nice validation too, because this one-to-one Chromebook thing is exactly what these kids are going to expect in college. So, those of us who were used to, paper syllabi and paper homework assignments and worksheets, it's all gone. So everything, you have to know, so the fact that our students are getting introduced to it in freshman year is going to give them such a leg up. So thank you.
Helio?
Yes, I have a statement which has to do with transparency. And transparency is the main issue to disclose on any public meeting. It's the law. I came to the board December 2016 looking for many answers on behalf of the community that actually elected me. We have a school district who sends students to top colleges, top universities in the nation. I do thank the district, the teaching staff, and the students for their achievements. That is why we have doctors, we have lawyers all across the nation. It is the process on transparency where sometimes I do not agree. I reserve the right to approve or disapprove any issue on the agenda. It's my right to do it. We have to face it. We have a divided board, which is good because it means that we do have difference in opinion. And the day when the five of us, agree on major issues, then we can say that we have done our job. Thank you.
Jacqueline?
I wasn't going to say anything, but just to follow Rogelio's comment, the five of us did agree on a very important issue. Is our superintendent, Diana Rigby, right there. So props to us.
Thank you.
Andy?
Just like to again reiterate what Diana said earlier about thanking the community for coming out and supporting the district at the Copacabana this weekend. It was a great outpouring of support and great venue. You know, it was the first time we've had a fundraiser like that on a school district property, and I think it was quite successful. I think the participants really enjoyed being able to see, or the attendees enjoyed seeing where their donations, or where some of their donations get allocated, and it'll be really nice to see those sites, see that site again next year if they hold it there when the major U buildings are up and running. But people did the gossip around the night was how nice the bathrooms were, and they are quite nice. They're actually very, very nice. So just wanted to say that.
I don't have anything tonight. So board calendar, I think there's a special meeting tomorrow. Is that a board policy committee meeting?
Yes.
I told you that I won't be able to make it tomorrow, so I think that
That'll be
we have to reschedule it.
scheduled for quorum?
Yes.
Okay.
But we do also have classroom visits, school visits
To
for
schedule?
October. So Maureen, excuse me, Monica.
It's okay. So I want to ask the board members if you are available to do the visits on the elementaries on October 3rd.
What day of the week is that?
That is a Wednesday. And that will be from around 8 to 10:30. That's for the elementaries. You can't?
No.
All of them?
Yes, all the elementaries only. And then October 24th for secondaries, which is CMS High School. And
What day of the week is that?
that is a Monday.
No.
So what we'll do is I'll ask Monica to send out more dates. And these are the dates the schools can do it. We might not be able to get everybody together, but we'll do our best. But we're not going to waste time tonight trying to get the dates.
I would
Yeah.
also suggest to invite the newly elected board members, since,
It's a great idea.
yeah, so that
I don't, but they haven't been sworn in. They're not.
they can go as a visitor.
We've done
Just
that
a
in the
tour,
past.
Yeah. Okay,
Will do.
thank you. All right, and we still have future agenda item budget subcommittee, and I actually would suggest that that's held for future board members as well,
Okay.
since they'll be looking at the budget for 2019-20. Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.